let's work some of the problems from the practice test. Again, on section A, you're able to use a note card. So I'll try to point out some of the things that you maybe would want to put on your note card. So starting with section 1, number 1, or part A, this one is given to us in vertex form. So remember, with vertex form, these two pieces here give us our left and right shift. That x minus 4 shifts us to the right 4, and the minus 5 pulls us down 5. Remember that the one inside with the x is opposite of what we see. So our vertex, easy to find, is at 4, negative 5. And on any parabola, the axis of symmetry is through our vertex. So it's a vertical line at that x coordinate, so our axis of symmetry is x equals 4. Okay, so whatever the x coordinate of our vertex is, your axis of symmetry should be the same thing. Moving over into standard form, the first thing we can find from here is our axis of symmetry. And in our notes, you should have this little formula, opposite of b over 2a. That's a little formula to help us find where the axis of symmetry is. So opposite of b, so opposite of a negative 12 over 2 times a is 2. So this is 12 over 4, so our axis of symmetry is at 3. So our axis of symmetry is x equals 3, and our vertex is on that axis of symmetry. So our vertex is at 3 something. How do we find out what that something is? We plug 3 into the equation. So y equals 2 times 3 squared minus 12 times 3 plus 3. Crunch that out, 9, 18 minus 36 plus 3. What's that? Negative 18 plus 3, so negative 15 is our vertex. So these are the two things that I should see for your answers on each of those parts. And be ready for the test. It might not be vertex form and standard form. I might throw an intercept form up there, and you have to find the vertex and axis of symmetry for that. But this right here, the x equals opposite of b over 2a, is probably something you should have on your note card. Going down to the graphing, that first one is given to us in standard form. So again, our axis of symmetry is the first thing we should look for. Opposite of b, so opposite of a negative 6 over 2a, in this case a is 1, so 6 over 2 spits out 3 for our axis of symmetry. So axis of symmetry is at 3, so that means our vertex is somewhere on that axis of symmetry. Our vertex is 3 something, so plug in 3. Crunch that out. 9 minus 18 plus 7 is going to be a negative 2. So our vertex is at 3, negative 2. That's not negative 2. There we go. And then in standard form, easiest point to get other than that is our y-intercept. Because our y-intercept is 0 some y. Well, if we plug in 0 for x, x squared is 0, 6x is 0, so we're left with plus 7. So our y-intercept is 0, 7. And I think that's this one. And then we can use the symmetry of our parabola to find out where else that would be. So that's 1, 2, 3 away from our axis of symmetry. So we'll go 1, 2, 3 on the other side. There's a third point that you can use. And that's good enough for us to draw that parabola. Lastly, this one is intercept form, so we look for the x-intercepts. So what would make x minus 3 0? you can probably tell me that that would be 3. What makes x plus 1 0? That's a negative 1. So our x-intercepts are at 3 and negative 1. And our axis of symmetry is right in the middle of those. So those are 4 apart. Right? So from there to there is 4. So our axis of symmetry is right in the middle of that. So our axis of symmetry is at 1. So x equals 1 is our axis of symmetry. And again, that tells us then that our vertex is at 1 something. So plug in 1 for x. And that's going to be negative 2 times 2. So y equals negative 4. So our vertex here is at 1, negative 4. Okay. On each of the graphs, you should have 3 points, no matter what form you're graphing from. You should have 3 points. And be prepared to graph from vertex form as well. So if we were graphing one in vertex form, vertex and axis of symmetry aren't that difficult to find. You would just want to plug in some value on either side of your vertex. So maybe if our vertex is at 4, negative 5, plug in 2, and whatever that spits out would be a point that you could use on your parabola. Reflect that to the other side, and you'd have your 3 points for vertex form.